Matt Canavan, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.
Now, you and your National Senate colleagues in Barnaby-Joyce have made it clear you won't vote for the Clean Energy Fund legislation unless nuclear power is included. Tell us a bit about that.
Look, that's not completely accurate. None of us have ever said that we wouldn't vote for the clean energy legislation. I've got nothing against the Grid Reliability Fund that's been put forward. And while it might be a little bit unclear in the media, happy to say for my own purposes, and I believe all my colleagues, that we won't vote against an unamended bill. We want to put amendments forward. We think things can be improved in the clean energy legislation. But if our amendments aren't supported, we'd still support the Grid Reliability Fund and see that go through. But I do think it's important for us to make sure that we look at all different fuel types to solve our energy future, to lower emissions. It's already coalition policy to allow the CEFC to fund carbon capture and storage projects. So that's one of our amendments to put that into law. But we'd also think we should start looking at nuclear. We shouldn't turn our back on the modern clean coal technologies that other countries use. So they should be in the mix as well.
But, I mean, it almost sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it, when you have coal, you're talking about coal technologies and a clean energy fund.
Well, some people like to describe it like that, but that's an interesting and useful label. But what I'm interested in is the outcomes. So a high efficiency, low emission coal-fired power plant, an ultra supercritical plant, can lower emissions compared to an old plant by anywhere from 25% for black coal up to even 40% for brown coal. So Germany last year brought online a ultra supercritical brown coal-fired power station. So if the Germans can do it and say they're signing up to net zero, why can't we?
Now, I've been told that Scott Morrison actually supports nuclear power. It's just he knows it's too difficult to sell politically, and so the government's policy is you need bipartisan support for it. What do you make of that?
Well, I can't speak for the Prime Minister, obviously. Obviously it will be difficult to go down the nuclear path, and there's a long road and conversation to have with the Australian people about that. I think one of the useful things about the amendments we are proposing from the National Senate team is this will remove a ban on the CEFC, the Clean Energy Bank, from financing nuclear technology. Our amendments won't permit or allow a nuclear power station to be built tomorrow, because that is banned by other legislation, by the EPBC Act, by a Nuclear Act, so that won't change that. But why shouldn't we start looking at the latest technologies, doing research, doing business cases, examining different needs in the supply chain and skills that we would need to adopt, say, small modular reactors here in Australia, or Generation 4 technologies? Why not start looking at that? Because if in 10 or 15 years we decide to build something, we'll be starting from scratch unless we do this groundwork now. So I think this is a sensible way forward, just to start down the path without committing to actually putting up the smokestacks tomorrow.
Do you think within 20 years there'll be modular nuclear reactors in Australia?
I think there's a very good chance of it. I don't like making predictions over that time frame. Other technologies might come along that undercut it. But it does depend on the world continuing to want to lower emissions, which is uncertain. But if that is to continue, if we are to go, what I would say, if we are serious and are progressing towards net zero emissions, I think it's almost certainly that we'll need to have some form of nuclear power here in Australia to achieve that.
Are you trying to start the conversation here? Is that what you're trying to do?
I think, look, it's not the only thing we're trying to do. Obviously, we want to see investments in coal and CCS as well. But I do think one useful thing of what we have done as a team, the National Senate team, is to put a spotlight on this, and yes, to start a conversation among the Australian people. I get that we will need eventually bipartisan support to go on a decades-long journey to build nuclear power. But we're not going to get bipartisan support unless some people start advocating for it, pushing it, and pointing out to the Australian people why it could be a very useful solution.
All right. You keep saying National Senate team. Sounds like your own party outside the Nationals.
Well, I think one thing that has distinguished the Senate team, so to speak, over the last year is that we don't have a member of the executive in our Senate team. We don't have a member of Cabinet among the national senators. Now, I believe that's the first time this has happened since Ron Boswell was leader in the mid-2000s. And so what that means in practice is none of us in a coalition government are bound to support a government policy. So we do have a little bit more freedom and flexibility to push the interests of the Nationals Party.
Well, Liberals believe that this Clean Energy Fund push of yours and other things you're advocating for are more about trying to get rid of Michael McCormack.
Yeah, well,
that you're still wanting to get rid of Michael McCormack. Is that fair?
Absolutely not. I mean, look, I always know there's going to be speculation and people. I suppose the most common pastime in politics is people reading other people's minds. You know, there's a lot of very good mind readers down here, or they think they are. But I can only speak for myself here because you're asking about intentions and what have you. I left Cabinet a year ago, and I decided, look, I really like this idea of being a Senator for Queensland. I like the idea of pushing policies and issues in the Senate. You've got a great opportunity and platform to do that. That's what I'm going to focus my intentions on. I've got no desire or have never asked to go back to Cabinet or go back into the ministry. I enjoyed my time there. I thought I made a difference.
Barnaby Joyce, though, do you think there could ever be a situation where he could be leader again, or is his time done?
Oh, look, I mean, if you put it in those terms, yeah, I mean, I think at some point he could be leader again. I think he's a very effective, he still is a leader in terms of the political debate. And look, you never say never in politics. But again, I mean, I can't speak for Barnaby, but you know, people on the outside view everything through a leadership prism. When in effect, I think he's moved on a bit too and getting on with his job as a member for New England. He's got the same sort of freedom as a backbencher and obviously has a willingness to use that freedom. So, look, I think we're playing a very useful role in pushing these debates and getting outcomes, and that's what I'm focused on.
In terms of the next Nationals leader, though, is Barnaby too tainted? Shouldn't it be David Littleproud or even you or another candidate who should succeed Michael McCormack?
Well, just to deal with the first proposition, I don't see how in any way Barnaby's not a candidate. Yep, you know, he went through some tough personal circumstances there a few years ago, but there's been other examples of that in the last few years. I'm not going to name names, and those people are either still in positions or get promotions. I mean, it was tough for Barnaby and his family, but these things do happen, unfortunately. I think he very much deserves to be judged on his professional performance and what he can contribute to the team. Look, and then on others, look, you know, I know that's a matter for the party room, and I think Barnaby only just turned 50 a few years ago. Like he looks a bit older than that, I'll unfortunately say for him, because he's been through more battles than most and got a few more grey hairs and receding hairlines than most, because he doesn't seek the quiet life. But then again, I don't think that's why people put us here. In
the party room this week, you spoke up against the JOBSEEKER rise, and people have said to me that previously you, and I know certainly Barnaby Joyce, have advocated for a rise in JOBSEEKER. I believe your concern was around the level of debt at the moment. Yeah. Can you take us through that? Yeah, well, look, I was an advocate for an increase in the JOBSEEKER, or then the dole. It wasn't called JOBSEEKER, but I always said in my support for an increase in the dole that I'd only support that when we were back to surplus, or back in surplus. Now, obviously, we're a long, long way from surplus. And I'm very worried that we are still in a spending mindset as a country, not in a productive mindset. We've got to get back to investing in things that are going to actually make money and help pay the bills. Because now we have the highest debt since World War II as a share of our economic output. This is a serious, serious problem for the country that very few people are talking about. Like it's almost absent from the political conversation. Well, now, I'm not going to oppose the JOBSEEKER rise. I'm not going to stand against it. I'm concerned about it, but my comments are mainly around just raising a red flag that this is an extra $9 billion. We're borrowing mainly from overseas, and we need to start talking about what is the appropriate level of public debt that we can actually afford and leave to our kids, and when do we need to stop committing recurrent spending, like increases forever, not just temporary pandemic responses. When do we need to stop that? Now, we've seen Linda Reynolds fold under pressure this week and go off with health problems, and you yourself looked shocked in the chamber when she couldn't answer in the question in the Senate last week. Do you think she's up to remaining in defence? Well, I'm not going to comment on someone's health circumstances for a start, and I wish Linda all the best. I think she has done nothing wrong through this particular saga.
I think she seems to have acted in absolute good faith to try her best to help Brittany. Obviously, Brittany does not think she was given the best help, which is very unfortunate. And we can all, what I'm saying is Linda did her best. That's not to say she was perfect, but none of us are perfect. And so I support Linda coming back. I wish her all the best. There's tough circumstances, and there's always things, I think it's always important to remember in life that, you don't know what's affecting someone 100%, right? Like, we see a little bit of question time and other things, but, I don't know about Linda's underlying health circumstances. I don't know what's happening in the rest of her life. So I just wish her all the best right now for her recovery, and I very much hope she can come back into the role.
Thanks for your time.
No worries, Andrew. Have a good one.